What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Always Next Year podcast, a video segment, actually, a couple of video segments that we're going to be doing tonight. I'm Rob alongside Shane. We're going to be talking about the Flyers first, and hopefully, we'll have some awesome Bryce Harper news later on. But we'll start off with that shitty hockey team that we've got 1-7-2 in the last 10 games. What's going on with them? Why are what's the main reason for their terrible record over the past 10 games?
Yeah, I think a big thing, they've highlighted on the post game, and ordinarily I'm not a huge fan of listening to the overly positive everything in the post games. But they're clearly a team that's pressing, and it's a bit that's like quicksand. To me, it just you lose this much, and especially in this kind of a town, it's so goddamn hard to pull yourself out of that. I just got to think that at this point, you've alluded to it, numerous times, the roster hasn't changed. We should not be struggling in the ways that we are. Reality of it is that they are, and I don't really think anyone has a true answer for it, other than sometimes, man, just the harder you fight to get out of that shit, the deeper you put yourself in it.
Yeah, I agree. They just look like they're really, like you said, pressing out there on the ice. They're not going out there and playing freely. They don't look loose. For some reason, they did the first couple games under Scott Gordon, and then they kind of reverted back to their old ways that they were under Dave Haxtell. But yeah, they just don't look loose at all. They're not being creative out there. They're not going out and playing their game. They're very tight. And offensively, they've just got nothing going on right now. And
the offensive chemistry is a fucking joke. They look atrocious with the puck.
Oh, this team is so boring to watch right now. I mean, it'll be one thing if they're going out there and 1-9 their last 10 games. All the losses were, say, 5-4, 6-5, something like that. They're going out there, they're losing games, 3-1. Really, today was 3-1. They got a garbage goal with 2 seconds left. Going out there getting shut out. They just offense. If they need to at least be entertaining if they're going to lose like this, and they're not even entertaining to watch right now.
I don't know that entertaining is exactly the word that I would use. I think more so than anything, they are literally last place in the NHL right now. At this point, I would like to see changes made to the style of play. I'd like to see some line changes and some shakeups. I'd love to see some more youth. To me, it makes absolutely no fucking sense that Obi Kubel's not up, that Vorobiev is not up, that Phil Myers is not up, Connor Twarynski. Like there's shit that you could do right now that would excite the fan base. You just said it. Under Scott Gordon and Carter Hart, they came up the same night. There was a little bit of energy. There was a little bit more in the building. There was more in the locker room. But that's only going to last so long. Now, I'm not saying pace out the rest of the year. Hey, in the next 5 games, we're calling up, Obi Kubel. 5 games after that, we're bringing up Twarynski. Like, that's not feasible. But at the very least, you give the fan base and you give the locker room some energy again. And at least if you're losing games 2-0, 2-1, 3-1, there's a reason to watch. It's trying to gauge the skill set of these young guys.
Yeah, I feel bad for Carter Hart. He's going out there. He's, aside from the Carolina game, he's been pretty good so far, and he's just getting no support whatsoever offensively. He's not getting much support from his defense in front of him. He's pretty much doing everything that he can to keep them in these games, and he's the only guy who's really performing when he's out there on the ice.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's let in a couple not so awesome goals, but it's to be expected as, a 19-year-old in the NHL right now with what he has playing in front of him. But he certainly played well enough to have more than I think 4 professional wins.
I believe so, yes.
And it's 11, like whatever the hell it is, 3-4 wins. He's played better than what that suggests. So, I mean, again, wins for a goaltender are what they are. They steal you only so many games throughout the year. But reality of it is when the 5 guys in front of you are playing like straight garbage, there's not a whole hell of a lot that a goaltender can do night in and night out, and especially not one who's got 10 games in his NHL career to him.
So you alluded to making line changes about a minute or so ago, and that's one of the things I want to hit on in this segment. What ideal line changes do you think that they should make?
Um, I don't know that there's going to be a definitive change in any of these lines that they can make. The thing that I want to see is the increased ice time and the increased role in more important situations with some of the younger guys. Both forwards and defensemen really doesn't matter to me. And we've talked about it in almost every Flyer segment that we've ever had, is the accountability is so bad in this organization. This is your opportunity, being, again, dead last in the NHL. This is your opportunity to force some true accountability. Gossespier's been as bad as I can ever imagine him being this year.
He's been awful.
Bobrov's been up and down. Obviously the start of his year.
Bobrov's clearly still bugged by that injury he suffered back in the playoffs.
Something. I don't know if it's that or what, but something's not 100%. But even him, like, he's picked it up, here and there. Right now, in terms of line changes, you have the unique opportunity of nothing fucking matters. You're not going to the post. You're not going to the playoffs.
Just fucking toy around with it.
Just look, guys like Jesus Christ. I wanted to say Lebimov for a minute because my brain's all off. But Oscar Lindblom, because that makes more sense.
Fucking Lebimov, man.
Dude, don't judge me. I was fine with him. But yeah, guys like him, guys like Nolan Patrick, who are clearly struggling, find a way to best utilize their skill sets and match up those guys with the Claude Giroux and see what he can do in order to to elevate their game, and bring out some of the best in who and what they are. And like I said, I don't think that there's a single fix that you can make right now, a single adjustment or change to these lines and ride with the rest of the 35, 40 some games that are left this year and everything's going to be fixed. It's just not going to happen. But I would certainly toy around with some things and, I'd be reevaluating the lines and pairings on a weekly basis. So.
You mentioned Nolan Patrick's name, and I think that he's one guy who they really need to work on finding a good line for, because he's a second overall pick and he has some pretty damn high potential, and they haven't been able to tap into that, save for a few games at the end of last. So I think the main focus for them, at least offensively, the rest of the season should be finding a way to get him going and to get him kind of into a groove and at least give him some confidence.
Yeah, I agree. For players like Nolan Patrick to come in with that pedigree of being such a highly touted prospect, you do in a season like this, like I said, as no one wants to sit here and go through a season like this, but you do have the unique opportunity right now of saying, fuck it, put him on the first line. He's playing 20 minutes a night. Let's see what the hell he does with a Claude Giroux, with Konechny. Let's get weird. Let's get weird with it. Like, it doesn't matter. But they do have to do something in order to find a way to make Nolan Patrick comfortable in his skill set and see some of those results happen. Not everyone bursts onto the scene in the NHL and is Connor McDavid, or Eichel. Some guys take a little bit of time. He is clearly someone who is going to take some time. I think my biggest fear with him is the fact that we may sell on him. Maybe not yet, but in the next year or two.
I don't think we should. We got to give him some time
because we haven't found a way to use him, and he hasn't been a consistent enough hockey player right now. When he goes somewhere and he turns himself into exactly what we all thought he would be.
We got to give him some time. I mean, I'm still confident that he's going to turn out to be a pretty damn good hockey player. We need to find the right line for him. Like I said, try to find a way to build up his confidence and get him going. But I'm fairly confident that he's going to end up being a decent player, and they need to have some patience with him.
Yeah, I agree. We've talked about it, in our text messages. Me and Baby Steve have talked about it too. What Nolan Patrick can be and what his skill set is, and you said it a few minutes ago. How he ended the season last year, his playoff run last year. There was a lot to be excited about. I don't know that Hacksaw was the right coach for a kid like him to bring him up and to energize him and make him feel comfortable. For bringing in a college coach who was supposed to be able to connect with youth, I always felt there was a severe disconnect with Hackstall and a lot of those guys here. And I don't think that he did a very good job at making them comfortable enough to succeed. So
let's be honest, Hackstall didn't do a good job with pretty much anything while he was here. He sucks. He's a terrible coach.
Pretty garbage at the NHL level, but I'd be curious to see, when we do finally hear a name as to who is and who will become the full time head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers, what they can do to elevate the games of some of the young guys, and then just stretch out some of the years that some of the core have left in their prime, because not all of them are going to be traded.
There's this guy named Quinville out there who won 3 Stanley Cups with Chicago. They should at least do their due diligence and give him a call. I don't know if they have or not.
Look, I'm assuming that they did already, and for collusion charges or whatever the hell you want to call it, they had to back off. Like I said, that whole goddamn flight home from the Canada trip when all this went down, it was just so damn off. Something was so wrong. So it wouldn't surprise me if his name was there and it was all but signed, but we'll never know.
Well, that flight home was a fucking mess, just like the whole rest of the season's been. As far as players moving on, getting rid of some guys, we talked about this last time. We talked about Voracek and Simmons. Do you see any other guys who they might be willing to part ways with if they can get the right price for them?
I think Simmons is as good as gone. I've seen Tampa Bay linked to him, though I don't exactly know what you're going to take from them that's going to, make it valuable for you.
Sure, so I'm going to get a high pick from them.
Certainly not. We've seen obviously the Toronto link. San Jose has been linked to him recently. So Simmons to me is the obvious one that's going to go sooner rather than later. I think that if we can find literally anyone and I'm a huge Jake Voracek fan, but he's been dog shit for the last couple of weeks. Like, he is a guy who, as much as he's talked well enough in some of these interviews and been pretty fucking honest about, we're playing like shit, we don't have much energy, we don't have much this, that, or the other. He's certainly not following through on his end on the ice. He's looked pretty lethargic out there.
So is this still a pro Jake Voracek podcast or not so much anymore?
It's still a pro Jake Voracek podcast. 100%. It's still a pro Jake Voracek podcast. It'll just be a pro Jake Voracek podcast with him in someone else's sweater. So we'll figure it all out. But outside of those two, which again are the two obvious ones, I actually would not be shocked if they kick the tires on a Shane Gostisbehere trade at this point.
I wouldn't be opposed to it right now.
I think it would be a terrible decision to move him. Personally, I think his offensive upside, which again was not what he wasn't supposed to be what he's been, over the early portion of his first 2.5 years. But reality of it is he was that for a consistent period of time for us. And the power play does go as he goes. We just haven't made a single fucking change in 3 years. And the 3 of the pieces on the ice have declined in their play and production, both on the power play and on 5-on-5. So being able to do what Shane Gostisbehere does with no changes around him and the declining skill sets of other players and rotating pieces in that outside of Claude Giroux, I think you're just asking entirely too much out of a kid who just wasn't supposed to be that. So I would not move on from Gostisbehere, but I do believe that they're probably going to pick up the phone if someone's calling. I would see a Michael Raffl kind of as an odd man out, type of a move just to clear the way for an Obi Kubel, to clear a way for Turinsky or Vorobiev. So I think those are probably the 4 names that are probably most likely to be moved.
Yeah, we've mentioned this a number of times before that Michael Raffl is kind of like that Swiss Army knife who can do a little bit of everything for teams. So there's definitely going to be some playoff teams, teams that are in contention that are looking for that kind of guy that they can just, plug in wherever, if they want him on the second line, third line, maybe fourth line, and have him play in different kind of roles for him. So he's definitely going to be of value for a team that's looking for a guy like him.
Yeah, for some depth to a really good playoff team or playoff contention. Um, I think I think he's invaluable. His ability to play the wing, play the center, um, play all four lines. He can kind of fit in anywhere. He's not going to light the world on fire, but he's certainly not going to make you lose a step. So I think he's pretty undervalued. And he can kill penalties now. He can play on the power play.
When
No real
recommended,
reason
but
to
he's not
no
terrible.
real reason for it, but he can. For someone's second unit, if they're looking for a little bit of a lift there, he could theoretically do it. So there's a lot that he brings to the table. So I do think that he'll kind of be an odd man out in terms of all of the pieces that are there that are not big names. I think he'll be the one that's most likely moved. I think they see entirely too much value in Scotty Lawton to move him, and good. I love Scott Lawton.
This is a pro Scott Lawton podcast.
Aces.
As we see that picture in the background right over your shoulder there, Scott Lawton scoring his first NHL goal.
Yeah, we got that. We got Danny Daniels, who I'm obviously going to have to now tag in this video. Solid studio background piece. But yeah, first goal. I think probably Michael Raffl outside of the two big names. And then, again, Shane Gostisbehere would probably be the one that they'd be picking up the phone for quickest. Possibly Travis Sanheim. I wouldn't.
I would not trade Sanheim at this point.
We've heard this kicked around now for a year and a half. Like, I just don't understand the logic behind it, but they're going to do what they're going to do. But I think if it were down to making the decision as to if someone picked up the phone and said, "Hey, we want either Gostisbehere or we want Sanheim," I'm pretty sure they're going take Ghost, do what you want. But it'll be interesting to see how it all happens. Thankfully, Jordan Wheel is no longer a Flyer, which is a shame because given the right opportunities, he's an average enough depth guy. Like, he can do enough things on the ice where there was some value. He just didn't fit what we do. But seeing a move finally made, you got to assume that more moves are coming. So that much at least is exciting.
Yeah, that's just the start right there. I mean, obviously they're not done. They're going to be wheeling and dealing all the way up until the deadline. One more thing I just wanted to touch on. Is it time to embrace the tank? And how high are you on Jack Hughes and Kaapo Kakko?
So, all right, look, because we're from Philadelphia, we sit there and we associate the tanking process with the longest process ever, just to get us only 4 basketball players on a roster full of no one else.
Trust the process.
So if you're following that logic of like, yes, we've tanked for so long and we've got the pieces that we wanted, but we've got fucking nothing else out of that. We just lost a terrible basketball game the other night to a terrible basketball team.
I mean, that's mostly Brian Colangelo's fault that they fucking didn't get anybody to surround those players with. But I digress.
That's my point. So you want to tank for anyone. You want to tank for Cobb. You want to tank for Jack. You like do what you want to do, but it's one fucking guy. Like, no doubt, could they make this team better tomorrow? Absolutely. But we've seen it, and we're seeing it with Nolan Patrick right now. There's no guarantee that at the NHL level they're going to come in here and be Connor fucking McDavid. It just doesn't happen often enough. So
to be fair, the 2017 was not a very deep draft class. I mean, basically, is Nolan Patrick and what's his name? Hischier from the Devils, however you pronounce it, and he's not really. I mean, he had a nice year last year, but he's not really lighting the world on fire this year. So really, it was not a very deep draft class in 2017.
No, but again, most draft classes don't see that many guys that make an immediate fucking impact. So I just think that there is more value in this season in bringing up youth and still trying to win hockey games, but trying to win hockey games with guys that are going to be here for the ride for the long haul. So I'm not fully committed to this whole let's just tank and totally fuck the rest of the season. It's not exactly something I believe in. Just again, living through it for 5 fucking years with the 76ers, it's just not feasible. If I had to go with one of those guys, though, probably Hughes. So he drives me fucking crazy because he just it's like Gudis. Every time the puck's on his stick, panic and shoots. Except this kid can. So that's the difference.
God damn! I wish some of our other forwards would panic and shoot sometimes.
Yeah, me too. Me
how
too.
many fucking times do we see a 2-on-1 with too many passes and they don't even get a shot off? I'd rather have a guy who's aggressive and shoots the puck.
How the hell? I think we came down on like 6 or 7 odd man rushes in the second and third period of the game the other night. Didn't score a single goddamn time. I don't even know how it's possible going in. It makes no goddamn sense, but whatever.
A lot of things about this team don't make sense. Personally, I mean, as much as I value the idea of, winning games with a young team and kind of building a winning culture, I think that if they can follow, what the Penguins and the Blackhawks were able to do in the earlier part of the 2000s and kind of stockpile draft picks that way, the Penguins translated that into Malkin and Crosby. The Blackhawks did so with Taves and Kane, and then build around, 2 really high draft picks. Then they could turn that into a lot of long-term success.
Well, we have a ton of draft picks or prospects already from high picks. So we'll see. You got your Frosts, you got your Ratcliffes, who's whatever. German Rubstov was having a nice year before he got hurt. So there's a lot of interesting pieces there that I'm curious to see how they would play and translate into the NHL game. So I'm not totally knocking on the whole tanking process. I'm just not a fan of it. I don't see how one guy is going to help the fucking shit show that is the Philadelphia Flyers right now. There is just so much more that needs to be done.
Well, it is an absolute shit show. You got any more thoughts you want to throw in about the Flyers before we head off to our Philly segment?
Yeah, like I said, I think that the biggest thing is just win a fucking hockey game. Just one more. That's all. Thanks for
Might be a while.
Back down to reality, by the way, before we do go ahead and sign Bryce Harper, because it's gonna fucking happen. But the 76ers lose, the Flyers lose, and like I was all high coming into the weekend. Now I'm back down to like, I'm a Philadelphian again. So thanks, Flyers, for putting me back in my place. Bryce Harper, you're gonna fuck it all up, and you signed here, and I can't wait.
Flyers are fucking dragging us down. Anyway, before we sign off, remember to go like us on Twitter, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, subscribe on Spotify, iTunes, all that shit. Give us a 5-star rating, or else I'll come beat the shit out of you. Just kidding. I won't really do that. I'll think about it though. Give us reviews. Tell us what we can do better. What we're doing well. Just give us suggestions, anything you want to hear from us. And that's all I've got. So stay tuned. We've got the Phillies. Bryce Harper is going to be a Philly, hopefully, podcast coming up next. We'll see you in a bit.